Hi everyone, this is Melanie. This is my work in progress presentation on my final project titled Phraseological Units of Lexical Fossils Across American English and British English. So I'm going to start with a literature review. You may be wondering what lexical fossils are. These are words which are generally unique and obsolete aside from their existence within specialized idiomatic phrases. So the lexical fossil fettle within the phrase in fine fettle, which in other words means in good condition. So you could say, she's in fine fettle. Glenhill and Frath, 2005, put forth that lexical fossils exist within frozen phraseological units. Additionally, the expressions that make up a lexical fossil's environment can vary in size. So we have many a little makes a mickle, with the lexical fossil being mickle, versus eke out, with the lexical fossil being eke. And they can exist within every level of sentence structure. So a lexical fossil can exist as a morpheme within a word, and these are known as cranberry morphemes, and they can work their way up to the phrasal and clausal level. And for this project, I'm going to focus on the phrasal level. I'm also going to touch on dialectal variation because I will be looking at lexical fossils across American and British English. So there are well-known differences that exist in the vocabulary of American English and British English. Some examples include American English speakers saying sidewalk, faucet, and mail, where British English speakers would say pavement, tap, and post. And so keeping this in mind, we can hypothesize that there may be differences in the use of lexical fossils across dialects as well. So within this research project, lexical fossils are examined across COCA and BNC in order to determine whether there are dialectal differences in regard to how specific lexical fossils are used within and potentially outside of their respective phraseological units. So the two research questions I have are, 1, are lexically frozen words used outside of their fossilized phrases? And 2, is there variation between American English and British English in regard to the usage of these lexical fossils? So for the methods, COCA and BNC were accessed from a web interface in order to investigate the use of lexical fossils across dialects. A search was conducted for 2 lexical fossils independent of their phrases, so fettle from in fine fettle and moot from moot point. A list of 10 lexical fossils was initially compiled, and those were all put in my research proposal, and then 2 were pulled from that, which more closely patterned together, so both having the adjective and noun. And then lemma forms of the adjective plus noun of each phrase was also searched. So for in fine fettle, it would be fine, finer, finest, and fettle and fettles. And then for moot point, it would be moot, mooter, mootest, and point, points. And finally, within COCA and BNC, a keyword in context display was analyzed, as well as collocates of both lexical fossils. To begin the preliminary findings, we can look at the words that fettle collocates within COCA, and we can see right off the bat that there are only 20 collocates and 59 instances in total, which is a very small amount compared to, for example, a common word like health, which when also searching 2 words to the left has 100 collocates in COCA and 97,962 instances. So that's just to give you some perspective. So from this set, we first see that fettle most frequently collocates with fine and in, which backs up Glenhill and Frath's claim that lexical fossils exist within their fixed phraseological units. But it's also important to notice the other instances, such as the lemmas finer and finest, as well as the words perfectly, good, much, and better. So let's take a closer look at these. We can use the keyword in context feature in order to give a more in-depth analysis. I'm just going to give a quick and broad overview of the things I've noticed. So you can see in lines 9 and 20, there are instances of lemmas finer and finest. You can see in line 9, in finer fettle, and in line 20, the finest of fettle. Line 20 is particularly interesting because we would expect fettle to be plural in this context. A possible explanation for this not being the case is that because the word is fossilized, they didn't inflect it the way that they should. So they were possibly hesitant to inflect it because the lexical fossil is so constrained. Another example that you can look at is line 14, which says in good fettle. A possible explanation for the substitution of fine for good could be that they're trying to modernize the context or environment around the lexical fossil in order to more effectively apply it to modern day English. And finally, some adjectives can be gradable if they are with an adverb. And this can be seen in lines 2 and 24 as adverbs are preceding the adjective fine. So in line 2, we can see in perfectly fine fettle, and in line 24, we can see in pretty good fettle. So overall, although there is some variation in the environment around the lexical fossil, that original meaning still appears to remain intact. So now we'll look at the words that collocate with fettle in the BNC, and we'll see a similar trend to coca. In and fine are the most frequent, and we also have lemmas such as finer and finest. We also have instances of good, which is interestingly more frequent in British English than American English. And we also have pretty and better, which are also found in coca. So looking at the keyword in context, I just wanted to highlight once again that in good fettle was found more frequently in British English than American English based on the BNC versus coca. And also we have an instance of in high fettle that we see in the BNC that we did not see in coca. So I know I'm over my 8 minutes, but there's one last thing I wanted to run by you all and get your feedback on. I inserted fettle into the Google Books Ngram viewer, and I compared American English to British English from 1900 to 2019, and I found an interesting pattern that in the late 30s to early 40s, there was actually an increase in the use of fettle across both varieties of English. So if you think this would be interesting to dive deeper into within this research project, please feel free to give me your feedback. So my next steps are to complete my analysis of moot point. I have recently started this, so if you want to know where I'm at, please feel free to ask. Also, just diving deeper into when there's a difference, knowing where the source of that is coming from, and looking deeper into the dialect variation through Google Ngram. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you all for listening, and I am looking forward to your questions and comments.